Hey, it's Mike from We Build Stuff, and today we're going to yell at a car. Perfect, very little effort. Easy. Set to loosen, not tight. Gear wrench, probably from the top. Okay, good. Leverage, says I. It's a long bolt, it's gonna take a little while. And there's one bolt still up on top. This is a 2005 Toyota Corolla. The transmission down there is making sad noises. I've already replaced the clutch, got the flywheel resurfaced, new fork, new release bearing, and that did not fix the issue. There's something that delves deep that is causing the issue. We're going to drop the transmission, but before we can drop the transmission and then try to take it apart and teach ourselves how to take it apart, I have to move a bunch of stuff just to get wrenches and all sorts of fun stuff down there. I'm going to start from the top, working my way down. I'm going to make notes of the entire process in my little book. And we're going to try to stay safe doing this. Here's why we think it's something in the transmission. When you turn the vehicle on and keep your clutch pedal all the way down, it sounds fantastic, but as soon as you take your clutch pedal off, you're hearing this weird noise coming. Let's listen. What happens when I lift my foot off? That tells me that it's not pressure plate, clutch disc, flywheel, any of that stuff. As soon as you take it off, the transmission is engaged and things are spinning on the inside. I'm thinking input shaft bearing, which is probably somewhere inside there. Problem is, I can't just, do that for magic up here. I gotta take the whole thing out and figure out how to take apart the case. Let's see what happens. Anytime I work on a car, especially something of this magnitude, I'm going to be taking off my battery. I want no chance of something starting or any kind of electricity issues. So let's get rid of that. Should go without saying, I don't want this terminal and that terminal to touch, so watch out. You know, it'd be great, some power tools. We'll get some of those soon. That might help. Hold down for my battery. I'm just going to put all bolts, screws, anything back when I can so I don't lose anything. I'm going to take the battery mount out because that's going to just give me a bit more room to get my hands in there when I start working on bolts and stuff for the transmission. That's also using number 10. That little support down there is for my battery. It's got some 10mm nuts, bolts, whatever the heck you want to call it. I'm going to take that out next. You get them loose. And I'll finish this with my little Milwaukee drill. I'm gonna save my wrists a little bit of wear. One, two, three. All right, let's get the whole airbox and some of that stuff out of the way. I've got two big clamps here. You can use Phillips screwdriver or, again, a number 10. I'm just going to get those kind of loosened up and then I'll work on the rest here. There's a lot of cables. There we go. Loosey-goosey. Might be easier to get these out after I pull this box up. Let's see. Decently clean air filter. Airbox has a couple hoses and stuff. I'm going to try to leave some of these things attached so I don't have to worry about them. Here's a random cable. If I can loosen stuff, I will. Looks like another 10 mil right there. Anytime I loosen a bolt, I'm going to put it back in to one of the spots so I don't have to worry about bagging or losing them. I'll probably remember where they go. We'll see. There we go. Random cables. Pop that back in. A couple of things that look like air hoses and stuff here. Let's pop those out of the way if we can. There we go. That out of the way for now. I'll unhook this whole thing in a second too. Actually, let's just pull that off. Done. Okay, let's put that somewhere else. With the filter for now. Bottom of the box is also held in with 10 mils. I have to twist this a little bit to get it off. A little hose right here. There we go. I got 3 bolts. I'm going to just put those back into those spots so I don't lose them. Bottom of the airbox came from there. 3 bolts holding that down. Both of those were 10mm socket. Let's keep going. I don't have a rag right now, so I'm just going to use some paper towel to kind of plug some of these things up. I'm going to start unhooking cables and unscrewing stuff that seems like I want to get it out of the way while I'm working. I don't know the exact names for them, but you know, if there's a ground clamp somewhere I can move, I'll move that out of the way. If there's something flexible that I can move around, but it's not in the way, I'll leave it. We'll just kind of go from there. Now, I'm not a mechanic, but I can take things off and usually put them back on again. You just got to remember where you put them. Sometimes it's pretty obvious the way that things go back, but not always. Here, there's another little clip you can either push in. I sometimes use a flathead screwdriver. There we go, that one's up. This one down here, that's held in another spot there. Flip that up, there we go. This is starting to free all these wires. Over on the left side, that's running to my starter. To the right, I don't know, it's going somewhere else. Probably sensors and stuff. Let's pull off this cover here, 10 mil. Yours might have 4 bolts. For some reason, mine only has 2. That's just gonna let me get my fingers in here a little easier. There's gonna be 2 bolts on top of the transmission here. There's another 2 bolts that the starter's holding on. There's 2 bolts on that side, and I think 2 more bolts on the bottom for a total of 8 bolts of different sizes. Okay, let's see what else we can start moving. Okay, I'm probably going to time lapse some of this, but you can see where there's cables running. There's a little plug socket thing going there. Those bolts, that's going to be holding my clutch cables. There's one there, one there. I'll see what I can shoot for details there. Here, when I press down my clutch pedal, there's a little hydraulic cylinder thing, whatever it's called. That's pushing on my clutch fork. Starter's just over here. It's got 2 bolts. Now, it's hard to get a wrench in here, so I think I'm going to take this fan off as well. There's a cable going to the fan. I might try to get that out first. There's a little clip. Might need a screwdriver. This one looks like you just press down there. Gently, of course. There we go. That one comes loose. I'm just going to keep those cables out of the way and try to remember what it plugged into. This just uses 2 10 mils on the top, and the whole thing pops out. There will be a hose running to where you would fill your coolant. As long as you don't tip the car over, it's probably not going to fall out. The fluid, that is. Okay, 10 mil. Don't drop the bolt, and if you do, it's just gonna hit the ground anyways. All right, little short guy. There's one just on the opposite side as well. This one is just opposite the alternator. It's a little bit of a tight fit. Oh yes. One more little guy there. And this whole thing should just kind of rock and pull up and out. If you got fluid in your reservoir, just don't tip the whole thing upside down. I'm gonna put that to the side as well. Those 2 little bolts, I'm gonna screw those back in where I found them. just in front of my radiator. Now this gives me way more clearance to get my hand down here for some other tools. All right, while I'm down here, let's take a look at the starter. All right, starter's a little tricky to see. You see that black cable, that's running to it. There's gonna be two spots. One goes to a ground, I think, and the other one is the power. Whatever they mean, just make sure you put them back in the right place. I'm gonna unhook those first, and then the starter comes out with just 2 bolts. That one just has a little button that you press up, pull out. The other one, you're gonna need a wrench or a socket. So it's just behind that little rubber guy. If I pull that up, underneath there, there we go. That's a small nut. I'm just gonna put that to the side, right back onto the starter, finger tighten that on there, and there's 2 bolts that hold it on. So there's a good view of the starter. The bolt is just right down there, one of them. The other bolt you have to access from the top. It's somewhere up there. There, I'm kind of touching it with my finger. You got to feel for it just under there where the air goes into here and down there. You'll have to feel for it. This one uses a 14 millimeter. These ones are torqued pretty tight from when the last time this transmission housing was put on. There we go, cracked it. There we go. This is a pretty long bolt. It's probably the easiest thing to take off if you're needing to do a starter on a 2005 Toyota Corolla with a manual transmission. This thing has 340,000 kilometers on it. And these things are still selling for a decent price used. There we go, there's one. So the other one is on the other side of the housing. I can feel it with my finger under there. I might need an extension on my socket, we'll see. There we go. Starter bolt, number 2. There we go. Starter bolt number 2. Now the whole starter should just pop out. Easy like that. All right, I'm not gonna explain everything, but I know I need to start basically taking things off. So as long as you write down or you remember where things go, you'll be fine. I got a couple bolts here with some cables running to it. Looks like ground cables. There's another socket. Let's just wheel that one out by hand probably. There we go. That's coming off this big main chain of cables. I see what looks like 2 12 mil bolts here. I can take at least one of those up to release those cables. All right, one bolt I think can stay. The other one looks like some ground cables going to it. I'll release those. Or the bolt back in. A little small one. Move those cables out of the way. I'm gonna put that back in so I don't have to remember where it went. Find stuff to unplug. That's a thing. There we go. This cable is starting to get looser. Now somewhere I'm gonna have to go under the car for this last one. That's running way down. If I follow this, it's going down near where my rear engine mount is. I don't think I can do that from up here easily, and I definitely won't be able to show it. You're gonna have to feel around for that one. Well, ooh, I know where I can reach. Since I'm around here, let's remove 2 bolts here so we can take off my little cylinder, slave cylinder, whatever. When you push your pedal, that thing goes forward and pushes the fork. Let's get that out of there. This part here is a solid tube, but later back here, it goes all the way back into a little sneaky spot. You might be able to see it. See that way down back there? That's where it goes to. Sneaky spot. I've got 2 bolts I want to loosen. There's going to be a lot of pressure on here, so let's see how this goes. Get it. Yep, that's a 12 mil for that one. Probably get that in there like this. There, cracked it. Cracked it open, not cracked like sadness. Oh, that's on there. Good. This isn't even a quarter turn at a time. There we go, one bolt out. Come on, there we go. I might be able to finger loosen this one. Now that bolt's gonna stay in there. I can't actually pull it out all the way. You can see that extended, so I'm just gonna be really careful with that. Now, I'm not gonna yank on this because this is special formed, but I can loosen it elsewhere. All right, following that line back, it's held down with a 14mm bolt head. That line is freed a little bit more. Just keep following it back. There's a bracket back here. Keep following that line back. And it's held on. There's a bracket here that holds up both the cable and that piece there. It's right underneath it, right in there. There we go, 12mm for that one. This has 12 on the top, and then around it looks like a 14. Let's see if that's with a socket or with my wrench. Okay, there's a little funny looking piece. Ooh, I don't even know if I need to take that off. Put it on the side for now. Okay, it's behind there. That's a different bracket. That looks like a larger one. Probably a 14 on this. Kind of have to feel around at the back there. Ah, there we go. But man, that's a worthwhile investment if you're doing anything like this. I'm doing this job so I don't have to pay $3 grand for somebody to do it. If it doesn't work, well, at least it's already broken. All right, bring that down. This is a flexible hose coming off of it. I'm gonna put that bolt back into the transmission there. Gently try to bring all of that over to the side. There we go. Gently leave that out. You can figure out how to put it back together after, right? There we go. Get that out of the way. This linkage, you might need a, oh, wow, that was loose enough. There's a little pin here. There's gonna be one more little pin on the other one. Yep, those came off easy enough. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? All right, there's two of those. I've already pulled a pin out of the top. You should be able to wiggle those loose. Just be careful not to snap anything. You should be okay. That one I was able to just pull up. There's gonna be a washer on there. Don't lose the washers. Another washer from the second one. Wiggle that loose. There we go. Good, out of the way. There's a retainer clip here and there that need to come up. They're a little hard to grab. Maybe some kind of pliers or something to get them up there. There, I found a pair of like locking needle nose, whatever they're called. Like vice grips, but they're pointy. That allowed me to get a good grip on them and just kind of twist. Wiggle, come on. There's one. Good, one. Let's see if I get number two the same way. Yeah, let's get a flathead screwdriver. Give it a couple smacks on the top. We'll coax it a little bit. There we go. Will a little jiggle be our friend? Here we go. Maybe a little to this way. Come on. There we go. Got it. So there's two of those little retainer clips. Look, I've already labeled them because I've done this before. Left, and the other one says right. Not that it matters. They both suck. I should be able to just gonna push, pop those out. There we go. Two more things kind of out of the way. I'm going to use the cross member kind of at the back to jack up the car. I know it's strong, I've done it before, I'm not too worried about it. And then I'm going to use jack stands on either side of the vehicle, just behind the tires. I'm going to go slow, just make sure nothing slips. I don't have a whole lot of clearance, so I got to go real slow. A little bit at a time. I'm gonna give it some wiggles. Once I'm thinking it's about right, I think I'll be doing it okay right there. Now, if you really want to learn how to jack up a car correctly, go check out my buddy at Way of the Wrench. He's got a good video on how to jack up just about any car. I'm not going to go so high that the wheels come off, because I still got to loosen those a little bit. Might as well take the wheels off now. I got those fancy wheels, you know. All right, 21. Loosen each one a little bit. It's gonna make it easier to pull the tires off when it's up in the air. And since I'm here, I might go ahead and loosen my axle nut. The axle nut on here is a 30 millimeter. I picked this up at Princess Auto. It's got 12 points. I don't know how many points I get for doing this. Just loosen. There we go. I'm not pulling that all the way off yet. Just want to make it easier when I actually get there. I'm going to go do the other side. Okay, I'm going to jack the car the rest of the way up now. I'm a cautious guy, so I usually put my jack stands under now, even though I want to go more. Alright, I'm happy with that height. I can get under there. I'll be able to crawl under to get my transmission out. I'm going to slowly lower onto those jack stands now. Nice and slow, don't want anything to slip. Let it settle. I'll leave my jack there for tonight.
They're like a spreading disease. The kids are strapping on the way to the classroom, getting weapons with the greatest of ease. The gangs stake their own campus locale, and if they catch you slipping, man, it's all over, pal. If one guy's colors and the others don't mix, they're gonna bash it up, bash it up, bash it up, bash it up. Hey, man, you talking back to me? Take him out, you gotta keep him separated. Hey, man, you disrespecting me. Take him out, you gotta keep him separated.
All right, so last night, got a lot of stuff taken off, but there's still more to go. There's definitely a cable down there I still need to get, but I can't quite get it, so I'm gonna do that from the bottom. And there's a few little attachments called engine mounts. 1, 2, and then way down there 3 that I'm gonna have to undo before I do the transmission. Before I do any of that, I'm gonna go ahead and take off the brakes and the CV axle just to give myself some more working room. So let's go ahead and take this system apart. So first step, I'm going to take the caliper off. I'm going to hang it up here on the struts or springs or suspension or whatever it is you want to call it. I usually just use a piece of wire to do this. I'm gonna have to get some better mechanics gloves. These are just for gardening, but it's what I had. I had put holes in my other ones. There we go. That way there's no stress on that hose right there. Okay, I don't need to take any of this rest of this off. It'll be easier without the gloves. However, it's -3 right now. We'll see how my hands do today. Okay, next I'm going to pull out these 2 bolts here. These are 19 millimeter. gonna get this caliper up a little higher, I think. There we go. I can see clearly now. Now this for me is the easiest way to get my CV out. I'm gonna drop the knuckle, give this a little twist. Before I even take those bolts out though, I want to take care of that axle nut. Again, that's a 30 millimeter, 12 point. Already pre-loosened it last night, so I don't even need to really use a wrench on there. If that comes off without the need of a wrench the first time, you've probably got another issue to worry about. Now when I pull this out, the control arm is going to drop. I don't want to add too much stress to any bushings and stuff, so I'm not going to leave this down for too long. I'm going to drop this down a little bit. I might put a small jack under here actually, and then I'm going to show you my tool that I use to pull up my CVs. I don't think this one's going to go high enough, but it'll be enough for me to pull it over. Hopefully you just come out without the use of heat. One. Once I pull this one, everything's going to kind of come down. There we go. Easy with the jack there. And then give that a little twist. Push up my axle. There we go. Easy. Uh-oh, but wait. If I do this and I pull it out of there, then potentially I'm going to get a bunch of fluid leaking out of that seal. I'm going to drain the transmission fluid first. Now because I just put this transmission fluid in a week ago, and this wasn't the problem I thought it was the clutch, not something going on inside here. I want to try to save my fluids, and if I can reuse it, I will. If it's not dirty, this thing's had, I think I ran it for maybe a minute. So let's see how this goes. Okay, this uses a 24 millimeter perfect. Okay, I'm just gonna crack it open. I'm anticipating my hands are gonna get dirty here. Even if I just let it trickle out, that's fine. I'm patient. I got 2 quarts of 75 W90 in here because that is what the manufacturer recommended. Yeah, it still looks about the same color. And I'll be able to squeeze it. I'll put it in a second bottle. Okay, let's see how this goes. Oh, there goes, there goes my ring. I'll save that for later. Don't lose that. Now I've kept the top one closed purposely so this doesn't come out as fast. I might get a big blob now and then if an air bubble goes in, but let's see how this goes. This just gives me a little bit more control. So far there's no particulates, no chunks of metal coming out, it's clear. That could be because the magnet on the inside of this is catching everything. Whoa! Got a little bit of wind here. Okay, my bottle's almost full. I like that I can actually see how much is going in here. I'm gonna fill it up to here before I cap it off and switch bottles. I think there's a scene in the movie Dumb and Dumber where something like this happens. Let's fill up the rest, new bottle. All right, here's my homemade slide hammer. You could buy one, you could rent one, but this makes it a little bit easier to pull out your CVs and stuff. This was just a big, heavy piece of metal. I drilled a hole in it. This is a piece of 1/2 inch steel that goes inside here so it can slide around. This just looked cool, and it's like in all the pictures of every slide hammer I've seen. The weight goes and smacks that. I guess that's just for carrying around. And here I have a fan clutch wrench that I drilled a 1/2 inch hole in. That way this can go through. And then just 2 1/2 inch threaded onto the end of here. Let's see how this one works. This is the first time I've tried this one. All right, now that it's strained, I feel a little bit safer pulling out the CV without all the liquid spilling everywhere. I'm gonna use my homemade slide hammer, which if you live in Canada, cold place like me, you can go to Canadian Tire, pay like 80 bucks to rent one, use it, take it back, and they'll give you $80 back. They got this pretty sweet Loan-A-Tool system depending on where you live. So this is going to hook onto the back side. If I was to just yank on here, I run the risk of actually pulling the CV apart, and I don't like having to rebuild those things. Let's see if this thing will fit in there. Not bad. All right. It's going to hit the strut a little bit, but there we go. That worked out perfect. Very little effort. The reason you need a slide hammer, there's a little clip that's on the end of the CV here. That clip goes into a little groove on the inside to prevent it from falling out and damaging all those little splines. Oh, that went so much easier than trying to just yank on it. Before I do the other side, I'm just going to pop these all back in place. That way I can reuse my jack. I might have to do an alignment after all this, but that's the least of my worries. Let's get this thing started, hopefully within a week or 2. There we go. No need to lose your bolts or add extra pressure on your suspension if you don't need to. There we go. Other side time. Again, I loosened that beforehand. And you just pop that under the ball joint. All right, just wiggle that one out. There we go. Axle, a couple taps. Give it a little wiggle. There we go. Axle's out of the way. I don't quite have room to get my little fan clutch homemade thing up there in order to pull out the CV axle, but I can definitely get a pry bar or something in here that I can hit it with and try to knock it loose with a hammer. So there's always some way. I got a short pry bar, a longer pry bar, and then an attitude adjuster. Let's see which one will work. There we go. Short pry bar, a couple taps to the back without damaging any seals or that cup. Out. Easy. Just so I don't lose any parts, put them back and out of the way of the ground. Little caliper bolts. Let's go play with the underside of the transmission now. All right. I know there's a cable that plugs in still down there a little bit. I wasn't able to get it last night. I'm gonna go up from the bottom, wiggle it loose, and then there's a couple brackets I need to take off to make it easier to access the engine mounts. Over on this side, there's the bracket that held the clutch cable. I want to pull those off because it's going to be easier for me to get wrenches down there and loosen out the engine mount. So looking from the underside of the vehicle, now that the CV's out, it's going to be way easier to grab that little cable there. Now, there's another bell housing bolt. This is a better look at that cable. I needed 2 hands to pull it, so I had to take the camera off for a moment. So just behind where that cable is, you see that little U-shaped? I want to get that bracket out next. This is where having gear wrenches or tools that can fit in there is going to be helpful. Getting rid of that It's gonna make it way easier to get to my engine mount. Sometimes you just gotta feel it's gonna be blind. Yeah, I'm set to loosen, not tighten. There it is. Oh, it's not a 14, that could be a 12 mil. You don't know until you can really feel it. Here's a 12, let's see how it fits. Yeah, that's a 12. I believe that one has 3 bolts holding it in. Cracked one. Just gonna finger loosen it a bit more. One there. Okay, one more right there. I might only have 2, I can't remember. I can't. I don't have enough clearance for there. That's why I gotta switch over to my wrench. It's again where the gear wrenches are nice. If you're planning on doing a transmission job, invest in a couple tools that'll make your life way easier. Yeah, that's loosened. See my wrench there? That's where it's on. So I'm gonna try to get my hand up there, loosen it a bit. Let's put one glove on so I don't hit my hand and bloody up my knuckles before I need to. One more down in there. All right, I think I've got all 3 loosened. See if I can get them out with my fingers. If things aren't moving, either apply more force, get some penetrating liquid or fluid, spray it on there, WD-40, something, you know, or just buy a new car. All right, there's 1, 2, 3. That's out of the way. Got that thing out of the way. I'm going to start loosening my transmission bell housing bolts before I do my engine mounts, just to make sure they're loose and I'll be able to get them out easier. The 2 that are on the top, there's going to be one that is on the left and one to the right of that upper rad hose. If you look carefully in the dark, let's brighten it up. See that little guy right there in the middle? That is one of them. The other one is a little bit to the right of the upper rad hose, right in the middle. One on the right, one on the left. So that one I can get there. So any brackets are in my way. Okay, I got a little wiggly guy. I might be able to get away with not using that. Apply lots of force. Alright, I'm not loosening all the way. I'm just making sure they're cracked open. This is going to make it easier for me later. Next one down there. Let's see if I need a big extension or not. I think I'm just going to take that one out. There we go. That's one upper out. I'm going to leave the top one in there as one of my last ones to hold it together. Well, before I take out my engine mounts. With the 2 top ones out, there's going to be 2 on the bottom. I already took that one out. There's going to be one just on the other side of the flywheel, just to right about there. I can't get my camera up. And there's 2 right up in there. Let's see if I can focus on those. All right, you see there's that lower one, 1 and 2. Let's get those loosened and just take them off. That's a long one. One more. This is going to take a while. I don't have as much clearance. Ooh, finger. Perfect. I can loosen that one by hand. So the 2 on this side, they are longer. The 2 on the bottom, they're shorter. The 2 on the top, they're a little bit bigger. There we go, one more. final one at the bottom here. Use my deep socket 14. And I already pre-loosened these just to make it a little quicker for video, so you hear less screaming. There. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The 5 and 6 are the 2 bolts from your starter. I took those out yesterday. The only one that is holding this pinched together, at least, is the top center one. Now, it's not going to fall off because there's still 3 engine mounts holding together, and around the bell housing are 3, that's right, 3 what I'll call guide pins. Maybe there's another name for them. Well, that's keeping everything nice and tight from falling. Probably the most fun part here is going to be trying to crack it open, pull it apart. Okay, time to work on engine mounts. All right, so the front engine mount. There's 2 bolts. There's 2 bolts that hold on to the transmission. There's one big long one that kind of holds this little pivot area together, and 2 that are down there on that cross member. The 2 that are on the cross member, I can go from below the car and go in through those 2 big holes. Not those little ones, that's not where it is. Up inside those 2 holes there. So you'll need some sort of short extension or a deep socket to get in there. I'm going to start on the bottom ones and just loosen them up. Now I'm not going to fully loosen these yet. I'm going to wait till I have an actual support underneath the transmission here, just in case. I want to make sure things stay still. I'm not really worried about things shifting though, but there's always a lot of weight on these things. Breaker bars are good for breaking it loose. Okay, I'm going to leave those just snug in a little bit until I can get the top ones loose. I'm going to have to use a gear wrench to get up in there. I've already labeled front mount, but those 2 bolts, there's no way I can get a socket in there with a ratchet. So I'm going to have to use a gear wrench, probably from the top. Alright, let's see if I'm strong enough to do this with just a wrench and no hammer. Yes! Loosen that one, I'm going to loosen the bottom one too. That one has very, very little space. Let's take that top one out, that'll make it easier. Can I get that one out with my fingers now? Yep, catch it. There we go, 1. Crack that one loose. There we go. There, got a little bit of flex. Transmission's not moving. We still got the other 2 on there, so I think we're good there. I can take this one out safely. You can also take out that little middle piece there, but I'm doing it this way. Okay, I'm going to finish loosening those ones on the bottom. There's no load on it from the transmission right now, so I can take that out just fine. 1, 2. Yeah, don't let that drop on your head. Perfect. All right, and there's the, I'm going to call this the rear engine mount. The rear engine mount has 3 bolts holding it to the transmission. And there's one going through the saddle. The one going through the saddle, you need a 17mm wrench for, at least on my car, and a 14mm. I'm going to use a gear wrench to get on into the ones that are actually touching the transmission. This one's awkward, and again, I won't be able to film it all, but you'll see my hands in this area. So that is located down in there. Probably do a little bit from below, a little bit from up top. I remember this being one of the worst ones to put in, because there's no clearance for your fingers. Once you finally get those threads to catch, you're good. Yeah, that's a good day. Things start moving and grooving. Not moving much, but they are moving. There's a 1. I got the bottom one loose. The gear wrench part is useless right now, unfortunately. But I can still get it on there and rotate it. What? 10 10 degrees at a time. Slow and steady. Those two on the bottom of the transmission. There's one there and one right there. They're very awkward to get to. So be patient, take your time with that. It's cold out, but sometimes you gotta work without gloves just to feel stuff. There it is. One. There we go. You might be able to do this one from the top too. I'm just not tall enough. See if I can finger. Yes, I can finger loosen that one. Bolt number 2. Last one, I can feel it from the top. I'm gonna have to probably go from the top to get that one. Now before I do that one, I think I might try and loosen that one 17 mil bolt going right through the middle there. Do you call that a saddle? Giddy up. That one going through the thingy. I got my 17 on there. I have a bar to make everything bigger and easier. Oh yeah. That's how we do it. Don't destroy everything, but leverage, says I. Can you see where that one's going? Yeah, that's going through that sucker right there. It's a long bolt. It's gonna take a little while. Okay, she's loose. If I pull that bolt all the way out, because it is still adding some support, let's throw a jack up underneath here just in case of any movement. I don't want to have my finger pinched while I'm in there. I'm gonna go for that one with the 14 mil head that's on the transmission. That's the top of that engine mount. There we go, cracked. Loosened. Cracked as in it's loosened, not that it's broken. Now I'm sure you could probably leave some of these mounts attached to the transmission and just take off that single one in the middle. However, I like to have room when moving things around because I'm doing this by myself. I don't want to get hung up on something and have to get underneath it in a way that I don't feel safe. For the viewers at home, just to show you where that top one is, there's that centerpiece. I still have that bolt in there a little bit. I'm slowly going through that with the gear wrench. There we go, that one's out. All right, you can see there's a gap in between there. I might be able to just leave this without taking out that center bolt. Let's see what that is. If I need to, I'll take it out, but I think I might take this off. That's from my clutch linkage. There's only 2 bolts. If I can get those out, that's just one less thing that gets hung up during this. Now when I take that part off, there's a couple little parts in here. I want to make sure I don't lose. There's going to be a small little rectangular piece that's on top of there. I'll just got to watch out for that. As I lower this, again, there's a small piece I don't want to lose. I'll be very careful with that. One bolt. Support it so I don't lose that little guy. 2 bolt. There we go. It's a little piece on top here that can fall off. So I'm going to hold on to that, put it in a bag, keep it safe. I'm also going to put those 2 bolts that held it down back into the transmission. No need to lose those. That's those 2 bolts right there. Those helped me hold on this bracket. And there's that little rectangular piece. I don't want to lose that. Now it's onto the side one. This one has 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts that hold it to the body. And to the transmission there are 1, 2, 3 that hold on to the tranny. Okay, now onto the side mount. Before I do this, I do have a jack underneath my transmission. This is going to help me relieve a bit of pressure so that when I loosen these they don't start binding. That bolt's going through this big rubber piece, connecting the 2 top and the bottom of this engine mount. Ooh, there goes the nut from the other side. That's right here. I'm gonna hold on to that. I'm gonna keep that bolt in there for a little bit. Let's go ahead and start loosening some of these other parts. There we go. If you grunt, sometimes it makes it easier, right? Loosen. Loosen. Two top ones are still tight. Another one out. So all the weight right now is still on that middle one. Let's take care of this middle one then. Am I making this up as I go? No, not really. I am being smart and trying to be safe about how I do this. This basically is the last piece. And then I'm going to be supporting the engine, tying something around there so it doesn't shift when I don't want it to. Yeah, there we go. See, there's a little shift there. Okay. Transmission is supported, but I just want to make sure this bolt doesn't go through and start damaging things. I don't want it to. Yeah, I see I can lift the whole the whole thing there. Almost out, almost out. The transmission is able to go down if I let it. I'm not going to let it go yet. We're going to get a couple more objects out of the way here before I really tie it off. But now it is free from all the engine mounts. So I could drop this, but I'm going to get a couple more of these things out of the way. I'm going to move this first. All right, some more stuff shifted, but it is still supported. There we go. I still have a jack underneath. Now what I've done in the past, because I don't have a hoist or way to get underneath to use this with the proper jack, I get a piece of wood going across the top of my car. I know it's not going to be the strongest, but that's just to give it a little extra support for the engine. The engine will be able to rest on the cross member. I'm not worried about that falling out. But now I need to kind of wiggle this loose or crack, what I call cracking the bell housing from the motor itself. I'm going to wiggle that loose, pull it backwards, and then try to lower it gently. There's 3 bolts holding the rest of this engine mount to the end of the transmission. I'm going to get those out of the way so there's less things for it to hit on when I drop it out. Now, taking one out, there's 2 remaining. This thing, I want to have a little bit of clearance between the actual wall of the car here. It's going to make it way easier to get out. There, that's off. I'm going to replace those 3 bolts so I don't have to worry about finding them later. Now I'm going to go ahead and support the motor with just a strap around it. It's probably unnecessary, but it's going to make my life a little easier because I only have 1 big jack to help me do this. If I had 2 jacks, I put 1 under the motor and 1 under the transmission to bring it down. So my very basic setup here, when I'm going to lower the engine down onto that jack that's just below the pan. Keep her about there. Then the only thing holding on the transmission, I have this little safety strap. It's not going to carry the entire load, but really the transmission itself is only about 80 pounds, 60, I don't know, it's not that heavy. That strap's just going to slow it down, allow me to maneuver things a little easier. I can then lower it down with this jack. I'm going to get a piece of plywood and some 2x4 to make it easier. And there's 1 bolt still up on top that is holding things in place. If you remember the final bolt, I had 2 up on the top, 1 to the left and 1 to the right of the upper rad hose. It's the one to the left that I'm going to be removing next. There. I'd already pre-loosened it, but I still left it threaded in there about halfway. Alright, final bolt out. Now that I have that bolt out, the only thing holding this together are 3 guide pins that go around the bell housing and my jack that's underneath, keeping it supported with that piece of wood. We're going to do this very slow. I'm going to do some from up top, some from below. I might have to use a pry bar to crack it away from the actual engine. Okay, let's start by lowering it just a little bit and see how it goes first. It's going to lower the actual engine down onto that jack. Nice and slow. There we go. So far, the main shaft where that thrust bearing or release bearing is probably still in the clutch, so I need to wiggle a little bit this way, back and forth until she moves. There we go, she's out. Oop, upside down. That was not terrible. You're by yourself trying to do one of these? I wanted to make sure it's in neutral. For it to be neutral, this has to be able to go in and out. There we go. Gear, nope. There, neutral. Okay, so that's how I was able to drop a transmission from a 2005 Toyota Corolla with a standard transmission. Part 2 will be if I can figure out how the inside of this thing works.
It looks like it's exploded. That's there's definitely one problem. I'm going to be taking this whole thing apart to see what's fallen down onto the insides and hopefully not damage something else.